The city of Karan glowed like a giant jewel in the night sky. Tall towers of silver reached into the clouds, their windows shining with cold blue light. From above, it looked beautiful, perfect, and alive. But inside those towers, not every heart was free. She sat alone in a high chamber, her hands trembling on her lap. Her name was Lyra, and tonight she was told her future. Not asked, not offered. Told she would marry Commander Draxus, the most feared warrior in the colony. The man was twice her age, his face carved by battles, his eyes sharp as steel. Her family called it an honor. They said it was her duty, but to her it was a prison. Her mother entered the room with soft steps. "Lyra, stop worrying," she said gently. "This is the best path for you." But Lyra did not answer. She only looked at the stars outside the window. Those faraway lights felt closer to her heart than the voices in her own home. Her father came later, tall and proud in his ceremonial robe. "You will bring respect to this family," he declared. "You will give us safety under Draxus's power." Lyra lowered her eyes, but inside her spirit screamed. She wanted to shout, to break free. But the walls around her were thick, and silence was the only weapon she had. As the night deepened, music echoed through the halls. The palace was all ready. Preparing for the wedding, guests from every district would come. Everyone would see her dressed in white standing beside the commander. Everyone would smile and cheer. While she died quietly inside, she whispered to herself, "I do not want this life. I will not live in chains." Her hands shook, but her voice grew stronger. "If I must choose between fear and freedom, I will choose the stars." The memory of her childhood flashed in her mind, running through the gardens, laughing in the sunlight, dreaming of adventure, of flying ships, of seeing the universe. Where had those dreams gone, buried under duty, hidden behind walls, stolen by the cold hands of power? Suddenly, the heavy door of her chamber opened. Her cousin Rena slipped inside, eyes wide and nervous. "Lyra," she whispered. "It's happening tomorrow. Draxus has already sent guards. They will not let you escape." Lyra looked at her cousin with tears burning in her eyes. "I cannot do this, Rena. I cannot be his wife." Rena grabbed her hands. "Then you must run." The words felt dangerous, forbidden, but alive. Run. Yes, that was the only path left. The thought made her heart race. Fear pressed against her chest, but hope lit a spark inside her. That night, when the palace grew quiet and the lights dimmed, Lyra stood at the window. Again the city stretched before her. Endless streets, glowing bridges and shadows waiting to hide her. Somewhere out there, freedom was waiting. She pressed her palm against the glass and whispered, "Tomorrow they will dress me in white, but tonight, I will be a shadow." She packed. Nothing, only wore a dark cloak. Every step toward the door felt heavy, but her will was stronger than her fear. The guards outside her chamber were dozing, their helmets low over their eyes. She slipped past them like smoke. The corridor was endless, each echo of her feet sounding like thunder in her ears. But no one stopped her. Down the stairs, through hidden passages, she moved like a ghost through the palace she had called home all her life. For the first time, the halls looked strange and cruel. These walls had not protected her, they had caged her. Her heart beat faster as she neared the outer gates. The sound of her own breath was loud. She feared it would betray her. At last, she reached the edge of the lower court. From here, the city stretched in every direction. Neon lights glowed. Voices of merchants and machines mixed together. And beyond, the dark streets promised escape. But escape was not easy. 2 guards stood by the gate, alert and awake. Her chest tightened, her mind raced. One wrong move and it would all end here. Her body wanted to freeze, but her spirit whispered, "Move." She waited until a transport ship roared overhead. The noise shook the air, drowning every sound. At that moment, she slipped through the shadows. Her feet carried her fast, her cloak wrapped tight, her heart pounded like a drum in her chest, and then she was outside. The night air was sharp and cold. For the first time, she breathed like a free soul. Her legs shook, but her spirit soared. Behind her, the palace lights gleamed like a golden trap. Ahead of her, the city was wide and dangerous, but at least it was hers to face. She did not know where she was going. She did not know what she would find. But she knew one thing. She would rather face the unknown than be a prisoner forever. And with that thought, Lyra vanished into the night. The story of her escape had begun. The streets of Karen were alive with sound and light. Hover ships hummed. Above, neon signs flickered. Machines spoke in mechanical voices. Crowds moved like rivers through the lower city, their faces hidden under glowing masks. Here, no one cared who you were, only where you were going. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter around her shoulders. Every step was heavy with fear. Behind her, she could still feel the shadow of the palace, the memory of her father's command, her mother's silence, the cold eyes of Draxus. She was free now, but freedom was sharp and dangerous. She walked fast through narrow alleys. The smell of smoke and metal filled the air. Vendors shouted, selling food, gadgets, even weapons. Lyra's heart pounded. She had never been in these streets before. The noble halls of the palace felt like another world. Here she was no princess, no bride-to-be, only another shadow trying not to be seen. But freedom has a price. It did not take long before the palace guards noticed her absence. Far above, alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed on the towers. The city itself seemed awake. Up and turn against her, Lyra ducked into a side street, her breath coming fast. Behind her, armored footsteps echoed, growing closer. Find her, a voice commanded, harsh and cruel. Her legs moved faster, but fear made her stumble. The alley split into 3 paths. She chose one at random. The walls closed around her. The shadows deepened. She could hear the guards spreading out, searching her. Heart screamed, "They will catch me." She pressed herself against the wall, hiding in the dark. For a moment, silence, and then light. A search drone floated overhead, its eye glowing red. It scanned the street, humming like a hungry insect. If it saw her, it would alert them all. Lyra's body froze. She could hear the machine's hum move closer. The beam of red light touched the ground near her feet. Her breath caught. She was 1 second away from being discovered. Then, out of nowhere, a noise cut through the street. A low growl, mechanical and strange. A vehicle rolled into the alley, not a hover car. Not an alien bike, this one moved on wheels, old and heavy. Its lights flashed once, blinding the drone. The machine sparked and spun, its sensors broken before it crashed to the ground. The vehicle stopped, and the door opened with a hiss. Inside sat a human man, his face half hidden in shadow. He leaned forward slightly and said in calm, steady words, "Need a ride?" Lyra stared, her heart still racing. She had never seen a human before. Not here, not anywhere. They were rare in this colony, sometimes whispered about, sometimes feared. And this one, driving a strange ground machine, was the last thing she expected to find. Behind her, the guards' voices grew louder. She had no time. She looked once more at the man, at the strange machine. It was madness to trust him, but madness was better than chains. She pulled the cloak tighter and jumped inside. The door shut, and the vehicle roared. It moved faster than she thought possible, its wheels screeching on the metal street. Her body slammed against the seat, but the man did not flinch. He drove like the city itself belonged to him. "Hold on," he said, almost amused. And the chase began. The guards saw them, shouted, and fired stun bolts. Blue sparks lit the night, but the taxi swerved, sliding between glowing trucks and heavy transports. The driver's hands were steady, his eyes sharp. Every turn was perfect, every risk just enough to escape. Lyra could hardly breathe. This was no ordinary man. This was someone who had lived on the edge of danger for a long time. She dared to look. At him, his face was scarred, but his expression was calm. Not cruel, not greedy, not afraid. Different from anyone she had known. Finally, he spoke again. His voice steady but curious. "You're not just running from the night market, are you?" Lyra said nothing. Her lips trembled, but her silence was louder than words. The man gave a small nod as if he already knew. He pressed harder on the controls. The taxi roared again. The city became a blur of color and sound. They raced through tunnels, glowing with red light, across high bridges that seemed to float above the void, down into the underlayers of Charon, where the air was heavy with smoke. The guards followed, but slower, clumsy in their big machines. This human driver knew every turn, every corner, every shadow. At last they broke free into a quiet street. No alarms, no guards, no drones, only the sound of the engine cooling. The driver leaned back slightly, his hands loose on the wheel. He glanced at her, his voice calm again. "You don't have to tell me who you are. Not yet, but remember this. Humans don't like cages, no matter who's inside." The words struck her like lightning. How could this stranger see into her heart so easily? She felt the fear inside her shift, turning into something new. Hope. Outside, the city lights still burned. The guards were still searching. Her story was not finished. It had only just begun. The taxi rolled through the silent street, its wheels clicking against old metal. The lights of the upper towers faded behind them, and the air grew thicker, darker. This part of the city was different. Narrow alleys, broken signs, walls stained. With smoke, it was the kind of place nobles never saw, the kind of place where someone could vanish. Lyra sat pressed against the seat, her heart still beating like a drum. Her hands gripped her cloak so tightly her knuckles turned white. The human drove without fear. As if danger was only another passenger in his car, his calmness frightened her more than the guards. Who was he? Why did he help her? At last, the silence broke. "You breathed like prey," he said softly, not unkind. She flinched at his words, but his eyes stayed on the road. I had no choice," she whispered. The words slipped out before she could stop them. The man gave a short nod, as if that answer was enough. The taxi turned sharply into a lower tunnel. Pipes hissed overhead, and shadows moved like ghosts. Lyra finally found her voice, weak but steady. "Why are you here? Humans do not belong in Charon streets." The man's lips curved in something like a smile. "Neither do runaway brides," he replied. Her breath caught. He knew, or guessed, what she was. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter, as if fabric could hide the truth. The man tapped the dashboard and a faint hum rose from the engine. "This city has eyes," he said. "But so do I." She did not know what that meant, only that his words carried weight. The taxi slowed as they entered a wide, open junction. Old neon lights buzzed weakly, casting red and green across the walls. For a moment it was quiet. Then, the silence shattered. A beam of blue light shot across the junction, striking sparks on the ground. Lyra gasped and the driver's eyes narrowed. "They found us," he muttered. From above, 3 hoverbikes descended, engines screaming. Each one carried a palace guard. Armor shining, weapons raised. The riders fanned out, blocking every path. The human's grip tightened on the wheel. "Hold on," he said. Before Lyra could answer, the taxi roared forward. The hoverbikes gave chase, firing bursts of plasma. Blue fire lit the tunnel. Shadows danced wildly. The taxi swerved left, then right, sliding dangerously close to the walls. Lyra was thrown against the seat, her chest tight with fear. The human's eyes stayed sharp, his hands steady. Every movement was precise, almost like a game he had played many times before. The first bike moved closer. The guard raised his weapon, but the driver slammed the brake. The taxi slid sideways, sparks flying. The hoverbike shot past, losing balance, crashing into the wall with a deafening roar. Lyra's eyes widened. She had never seen anyone fight like this. Not with weapons. Not with brute force. Only with skill. The other 2 riders pressed harder, their bikes circling like wolves. The driver shifted gears. The engine screamed louder. He aimed for a narrow tunnel ahead. The bikes followed, their lights burning close behind. The tunnel shook with sound. Machines, engines, voices of pursuit. One rider pulled close to the side of the taxi. He tried to grab the door, pulling it open. Lyra's heart stopped. The driver leaned sharply. The taxi slammed against the wall. The rider cried out as his bike clipped the edge. He spun out of control, crashing into the shadows. Only one remained. He was faster, smarter, his aim steady. The driver's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. For the first time, Lyra saw tension in his face. The guard fired, bolts striking near. The tires. The taxi jolted but did not fall. The driver pulled hard, spinning the wheel. The taxi twisted into a side passage, dark and narrow. The last rider followed, closer and closer. The human's voice dropped low, almost a whisper. "You want to know why I'm here, little runaway?" Lyra turned, her breath caught. The driver's eyes glowed faintly under the neon light. "Because humans survive where no one else can." He slammed the accelerator. The taxi shot forward, faster than she thought possible. The tunnel curved down, into darkness. The hoverbike followed, its light cutting the black, but the driver pulled a lever hidden beneath the seat. The floor beneath them shifted, and the taxi dropped. They fell into a hidden passage below. The hoverbike overshot, crashing into the far wall in a shower of sparks. Silence returned, only the hum of the engine remained. Lyra gasped for breath, her body shaking. The man leaned back slightly, calm again. He said nothing for a long moment. Finally, he spoke, his tone low and steady. "You don't need to trust me, but if you want to live, stay in this taxi." Lyra looked at him, truly looked, not as a stranger, not as a human, but as something else, someone who had chosen danger, someone who had chosen her. The fear in her chest shifted once more. It turned into fire. She nodded slowly. "I will stay," she whispered. The man gave no smile, no thanks. He only turned the wheel. The taxi rolled deeper into the hidden dark, where no guard could follow, and where the true story waited. The hidden passage stretched on for miles, dark and silent. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping water. The air smelled of rust and smoke. The taxi's headlights cut through the black, glowing like two sharp eyes. Lyra sat stiff, her breath slow, her heart still restless. She had escaped the palace, but she was now trapped in something new, a moving machine, guided by a stranger she did not understand. The man drove with the same calm, his eyes fixed on the endless road. No hesitation, no fear, as if he had driven this path 1,000 times. The silence between them grew heavy. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice trembling. "You saved me, but why? What do you want from me?" The driver did not look at her. His hands stayed steady on the wheel. At last he said, "Not everything is about what I want." His words were strange to her. Everyone in her world wanted something. Power, money, respect, control, but his tone carried no greed, only weight. Lyra leaned closer, her eyes searching his face. "You knew the guards were after me, didn't you?" The man gave a small nod. "I heard the alarms, I saw the searchlights." He paused, then added, "I also saw a girl who wanted freedom more than she wanted life." The words cut deep. Lyra's throat tightened. It was true. She had been ready to risk everything. But how could he see that so clearly, as if her soul was written on her skin? She turned away, staring out the window at the passing dark. Her voice was low, almost broken. "They would force me to marry him, a man I do not love, a man who would cage me forever." The confession slipped out. It was the first time she had said it aloud. The air in the taxi grew heavier. The driver's hands flexed slightly on the wheel. His jaw tightened. "I know cages," he said quietly. Lyra turned back to him, eyes wide. There was no smile on his face, no joke in his tone, only a shadow, a memory hidden deep. "What do you mean?" she whispered. The man exhaled slowly. He did not answer right away. Instead, he steered the taxi into a wider chamber underground. Old ruins stretched around them. Broken bridges, collapsed walls. This was a place abandoned long ago, safe from eyes above. The taxi slowed, the engine humming softly. The driver rested one hand on the wheel and leaned back. For the first time, his eyes met hers fully, sharp, deep, filled with something she had never seen in any noble, not coldness, not pride, something harder. Survival. "They call me Kale," he said simply. "A name, finally." Lyra whispered it under her breath. It felt strange, human, strong. Kyle continued, "I came here years ago, when humans were still allowed in the colonies." His voice dropped lower. But humans don't belong here. Not really. Not in their eyes. He tapped the dashboard once, the sound echoing in the hollow chamber. Humans build, humans fight, humans survive. But to them, we are too different. Too dangerous. So they pushed us into the shadows. Now most hide, most disappear. Lyra's chest ached with his words. She had grown up in a palace of rules and power. She had never thought of what it meant to live as an outsider. But his voice carried truth. Sharp and heavy, you live in hiding, she said softly. Kale gave a half smile, though there was no joy in it. I live on my own terms. He leaned forward, his eyes hard. Do you understand what that means? Lyra swallowed, her heart racing. It meant freedom, but it also meant danger. It meant he had chosen a path where no one protected him, where every day was a battle just to remain himself. You don't trust me yet, Kale said suddenly. His voice was steady, almost calm, and you shouldn't. Not yet. His honesty shocked her. No one in her world spoke this way. In the palace, words were always masks. But his words were bare, raw. Lyra lowered her hood, letting him see her face. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. You should not trust me either, she said. Kale's lips curved slightly. Then we are even. For a long moment, silence filled the car. Only the hum of the engine echoed. But inside that silence, something had changed. Not trust, not yet, but a thread. A thin, fragile bond. One made of shared cages and broken chains. The quiet ended when a faint rumble shook the ground. Lyra's head snapped up, fear flooding her. Chest Kale's eyes narrowed. They're still searching, he muttered. He started the engine again. The taxi growled to life. They won't stop until they find you. Lyra's hands trembled. Her voice was soft but sharp. Then what do we do? Kale's gaze stayed forward. His words were steady, almost fierce. We keep moving because that's what humans do best. We keep moving until the cage breaks. The taxi rolled forward once more, into deeper shadows, into unknown paths where the city's eyes could not follow. And Lyra felt her fear twist again. Not gone, but changed, because for the first time, she was not running alone. The underground roads stretched like veins through the city, dark, endless, and filled with echoes. The taxi moved fast, its engine growling low. Kyle's hand stayed steady on the wheel. Lyra sat close to the window, her eyes wide, her breath sharp. She thought they were safe, hidden deep below. But the sound came first. A faint hum growing louder, then the glow of lights behind them, blue and red flashing through the dark. Kale cursed under his breath. They found us. Lyra's chest tightened. How? We lost them, she whispered. Kale shook his head. No one is ever truly lost in Karan. Not when the palace wants you. The glow grew brighter. 3 armored transports thundered through the tunnels, each one heavy, each one built for war. They moved with speed no normal machine should have. Their engines screamed like beasts hungry for prey. Lyra grabbed the seat, her voice trembling. They will crush us. But Kale's eyes narrowed, sharp and calm. Not if we move first. He slammed the accelerator. The taxi roared, wheels spinning, sparks flying. They shot forward, the tunnel rushing past in a blur of steel and shadow. Behind them, the transports followed. Weapons mounted on their roofs began to glow. Lyra's heart stopped. They are going to fire. Kyle jerked the wheel. The taxi swerved just as a blast struck the wall. The tunnel shook. Chunks of stone fell, dust filled the air. The explosion's light flashed across Lyra's face. She cried out, clutching the seat. Kyle did not flinch. He drove faster, weaving left and right, his voice cut through the chaos. Hold on. The second transport pulled closer. Its engine howled, its weapon aimed. Kale's eyes flicked to a side passage, narrow, almost impossible. Without hesitation, he turned the wheel. The taxi slid sideways, tires screeching. They barely fit through. Metal scraping metal. Behind them, the first transport tried to follow, too wide, too heavy. It slammed into the walls with a deafening crash. Fire lit the tunnel, the sound echoing like thunder. Lyra gasped. 1 enemy gone, but 2 remained. Kale kept driving, his breathing steady, his eyes scanning, searching, calculating. Every move was sharp, like he had done this all his life. You fight them like you know them, Lyra whispered. Kale's jaw tightened. I've been hunted before, he said simply. The second transport pushed harder. It gained speed, its front grille glowing hot. It rammed against the back of the taxi. The impact shook the car. Lyra cried out. Kyle gritted his teeth. He shifted gears. The engine roared louder. The taxi shot forward with sudden force, but the transport followed relentless. Kale's eyes caught something ahead. A broken bridge half collapsed. The gap stretched across a pit of shadows, impossible for a machine to cross. Lyra saw it too. Her voice broke in fear. We can't make it. Kale's voice was calm, steady. Humans don't ask if we can, we just do. He pressed harder on the accelerator. The taxi screamed as it flew forward. The broken bridge rushed closer, closer. Lyra shut her eyes. Her heart stopped. And then, the taxi soared, wheels leaving the ground. For a moment, they were weightless, floating in the dark. The pit yawned below them, endless, but the front tires slammed onto the far side. The car jolted, scraping, almost falling. But Kale twisted the wheel. The taxi gripped the edge and pulled itself up. They made it. Behind them, the second transport tried the same. It was too heavy, too slow. It fell, its roar swallowed by the shadows below. Silence followed, broken only by Lyra's ragged breath. 2 enemies gone. 1 remained. The last transport slowed. It did not chase recklessly like the others. Its lights dimmed. Its engine growled low. Lyra frowned, fear gripping her again. Why is it slowing? Kale's eyes narrowed. Because that one is smarter, and smarter is worse. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber. Broken machines and old scaffolds lined the walls. The last transport entered slowly, steady and confident. From its roof, a turret rose, humming with power. Kale's jaw tightened. That's not a hunter, that's an executioner. The turret fired. A beam of burning light struck the ground near the taxi. The floor exploded, sending shockwaves through the chamber. Kale swerved. Hard, the taxi barely holding together. Lyra's voice shook. We cannot fight that. Kale's hands gripped the wheel tighter. His voice was low, fierce. We don't fight head-on, we fight like humans. He drove straight toward the scaffolds. The transport followed, turret firing again. Metal beams crashed down, dust filled the chamber. Kale swerved left, then right, weaving through the falling wreckage. The transport was bigger, slower. It smashed through beams but lost speed. Kale's eyes caught a weak point in the wall, a crack, a fault. He turned sharply, ramming the taxi against it. The wall crumbled, revealing a narrow escape. The taxi slid through the gap. The transport tried to follow. Too wide, too heavy. The wall collapsed behind them, sealing it in. The roar of the engine faded into silence. Lyra's chest heaved, her eyes wide in disbelief. You beat them, she whispered. Kale shook his head. No, we survived them. He glanced at her, his eyes sharp. Remember this. Survival is victory, and humans are very hard to kill. The taxi rolled deeper into the shadows, the danger behind them, but not gone. The palace would not stop, and Kale knew it. But for now, they had bought time, and time was the sharpest weapon of all. The tunnels grew quieter as the taxi rolled. Deeper. The engine hummed low. The wheels crackled softly on broken ground. Above them, the city raged with alarms and searchlights, but down here the shadows were thick, heavy and silent. Lyra leaned back against the seat, her chest still rising fast, her hands trembled, her throat dry. She had never felt fear like this, not in the palace, not even in Draxus's cold stare. This fear was wild, raw, sharp as fire, but under it, something else stirred. Excitement. For the first time she had escaped. She had fought. She had lived. Kale kept his eyes on the road, his face unreadable, calm, but carved with lines of thought. He did not celebrate their escape. He did not laugh or boast. He only drove, as if survival was nothing more than breathing. Finally, Lyra broke the silence, her voice soft. You should have left me. You risked your life for someone you do not even know. Kale's jaw tightened. Maybe, he said, but I know cages when I see them. Lyra turned, her silver eyes meeting his. What cage held you? She asked. The question hung in the air. For a moment she thought he would ignore it, but Kale exhaled slowly and spoke. "I was born on a mining world," he said quietly. "Not rich, not noble, not special, only human." His voice carried weight. "Humans worked the deepest tunnels, we dug where others would not. We fought where others would break, and when the colonies decided we were too dangerous, they closed the gates and pushed us out." Lyra frowned, confusion mixing with pain. "But why dangerous? You are only a man." Kale's eyes glinted in the dim light. "Because humans refuse to bend, we survive, even when survival is impossible. And that frightens those who live in cages of power." His words struck her chest like a hammer. She thought of her father's stern voice, her mother's silence, the commander's cold demand. Yes, cages came in many forms, and Kale's voice cut through all of them. Lyra whispered, "You make it sound like survival is strength." Kale gave a faint smile, but there was no joy in it. Survival is strength. Every day you breathe is victory. The taxi passed through a chamber where old ruins lay, broken statues of alien kings, their faces cracked and worn. Once powerful, now dust. Lyra stared at them and whispered, "Even kings fall." Kale nodded. "But the ones who endure are the ones who refuse to kneel." Silence filled the car again, but this silence was different. Not heavy, not cold. Something had shifted between them. Not trust. Trust was still fragile, but something close. At last, Lyra said, her voice steadier, "Why drive this machine? Why hide in the shadows of Karen instead of leaving?" Kale's hands flexed on the wheel. His gaze stayed forward. "Because this city is a cage and every cage needs a crack. I am that crack." His words were bold, almost reckless. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. One man against the palace? That is madness. Kale's eyes narrowed. Maybe. But madness is what humans are good at. For the first time, a small laugh escaped her lips. It surprised her. Light in the dark, Kale glanced at her, not smiling, but softer somehow. "You laugh now. That is good, it means you are alive." But their moment of quiet was short. The radio in the dashboard crackled suddenly. A harsh, mechanical voice filled the taxi. "Sector 7 sealed. Target still at large. Find the runaway before dawn." The words cut like knives. Lyra froze, her stomach twisting. "They are everywhere," she whispered. Kale's eyes hardened. "They will not stop." He turned the wheel sharply, guiding the taxi down another hidden route. The only question is this: do you keep running until they catch you, or do you learn to fight? Lyra's breath caught. "I don't know how to fight." Kale's voice was steady. "You will, because humans aren't born knowing either. We learn when the fire is at our heels." His words filled her with fear, and something else. Her heart beat faster, not only from danger, but from the thought that maybe she could be more than a runaway bride. Maybe she could choose her own path, not just escape it. The taxi rolled into another chamber, this one wide, lit by faint red lights from broken machines. Kale slowed the car, his eyes scanning the shadows. He rested his hand on the wheel and turned to her. "You wanted freedom, but freedom has a price. It is not just running away, it is choosing to stand, even when the world tells you to kneel." Lyra's throat tightened. His words echoed inside her chest. She thought of the palace, of Draxus, of her father's cold command. For the first time, she felt anger rise. Not fear, not sadness. Anger, sharp and burning. Kale saw it in her eyes. He gave a slow nod. "Good. Hold on to that fire." He turned the wheel again. The taxi moved into the dark, and Lyra whispered to herself, "I will not kneel again." The tunnels narrowed again, twisting like the veins of some buried beast. The taxi's headlights cut across damp walls, broken pipes, and shadows that seemed alive. Kale's hand stayed firm on the wheel, but his eyes were sharp, alert. He could feel it. The way hunters feel their prey before they see it. The palace was close. Lyra leaned forward, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Her voice was tense, trembling. "They will not stop. They will search until they find me." Kyle nodded once, That is what cages do. They chase the bird that flies away. The hum of the engine echoed through the chamber, but beneath it came another sound, distant at first, then louder. Engines, heavy and cold. Lyra's chest tightened. They're here. From behind, blue lights flared. Dozens of drones swooped through the tunnels, their red eyes glowing. Behind them came hover troops, armored and armed, and above, the sound of metal claws scraping as mechanical hunters crawled. Along the ceiling, the palace had unleashed everything. Cale's jaw clenched. He pressed the accelerator. The taxi roared, shooting forward. But the swarm followed, relentless. Blasts of blue fire lit the tunnel, striking the walls, shaking the ground. Lyra clung to the seat, her heart hammering like thunder. Kyle swerved left, right, down side paths, each turn sharper than the last. But the enemy was endless. No matter how fast, how sharp, the palace's machines filled the dark like a flood. Lyra's voice broke. We cannot outrun them. Kale's eyes narrowed. Then don't. His voice was steady, fierce. Running was never the answer. Choosing is. The word struck her harder than the chase. Choosing. That was something she had never been allowed. Her whole life had been decided by others. Her family, the palace, Draxus. Even her escape had been desperate, not planned. And now, Kale was telling her it was not about escape, it was about choice. Ahead, the tunnel split in two. One path led upward, toward the city, toward the palace's grip. The other plunged deeper, into unknown blackness where no lights shone. Kale slowed, slightly, his voice calm but heavy. This is it. 2 roads. He glanced at her, his eyes sharp. Go back and they will take you. You will live in a cage, safe but broken. He gestured toward the black tunnel. Or go forward, into the unknown. Dangerous, yes, but free. Lyra's breath shook. Her hands trembled in her lap. The sound of drones grew louder behind them. The choice pressed on her chest like a mountain. Kyle's voice softened. I can drive either way. But it is not my life, Lyra. It is yours. For the first time, she realized he was not here to save her. He was here to show her she could save herself. The roar of the machines filled the air. Blue lights flooded the tunnel, the enemy closing. Fast, Lyra closed her eyes. She saw Draxus's face, cold and cruel. She saw her father's eyes, heavy with duty. She saw the palace walls, tall and unbreakable. And then she saw herself, standing in chains, silent, voiceless, forgotten. Her eyes snapped open, fire burning inside them. She lifted her chin, her voice sharp and clear. Drive forward. Kale gave a single nod. No smile, no words of praise, only action. He slammed the accelerator. The taxi screamed, wheels spinning. They shot into the black tunnel. The drones fired, but the shots missed, striking only the walls. The swarm tried to follow, but the narrow passage swallowed the light. And soon the palace's machines could no longer fit. Silence returned, only the growl of the taxi remained. The darkness was endless. The tunnel stretched forward like the mouth of some great beast, but Lyra felt no fear, not anymore. Her breath was steady, her eyes bright. For the first time she had chosen her path, not for her father, not for her family, not even for Kale, but for herself. Kale glanced at her from the corner of his eye. You chose, he said simply. Lyra nodded, her voice firm. Yes, I chose, and I will never kneel again. The taxi rolled deeper into the shadows. No palace, no guards, no chains, only the unknown. And in that unknown possibility, for the first time, Lyra felt free, truly free. And beside her sat a human who had shown her the truth. That survival was strength, that cages could be broken, that choice was power. The story of her escape was over, but the story of her freedom had only just begun.